For centuries, one book in the Bible has sparked more nightmares, conspiracy theories, and wild speculation than any other. The Book of Revelation. Its name alone brings up images of terror, cosmic wars, and a cryptic timeline for the end of the world. People have used it to predict everything from earthquakes to the rise of political leaders, often leaving us with more questions and fear than actual faith. But what if the common view of Revelation as a terrifying roadmap to the future misses the point entirely? What if the key to this strange book isn't about decoding a timeline, but about unveiling a deeper reality? What if, buried beneath all the dragons and destruction, the real message is one of incredible hope? In this video, we're going to pull back the curtain on Revelation. We'll explore how its unique structure reveals that it's not just a script for doomsday. It's a circular letter written to 7 real churches that were facing intense persecution. It was designed to give them, and us, unshakable hope in a world that feels chaotic. We're going to unpack a story that is more profound and more hope-filled than you might have ever imagined. Before we can get into the visions, we have to understand what the Book of Revelation actually is. The book tells us itself right at the beginning, the revelation from Jesus Christ. To his servant John, a leader in the Arlen Church, was exiled to the island of Patmos because of the Word of God and the testimony of Jesus. So, this isn't just a random collection of bizarre dreams. It's a letter. Specifically, it was a circular letter meant to be passed around to 7 churches in Asia Minor, which is modern-day Turkey. These were real communities in cities like Ephesus, Smyrna, and Laodicea, full of people trying to live out their faith under the immense pressure of Roman culture. To get its message across, the letter uses a mix of 3 literary styles. First, it's an apocalypse. The Greek word, apocalypsis, doesn't actually mean end of the world. It means an unveiling. The goal is to pull back the curtain on our ordinary reality and show what's really going on from God's perspective, using vivid symbols to expose the powers at work behind the scenes. Second, it's a prophecy. In the Bible, prophecy isn't just about predicting the future. It's about speaking God's truth to the present moment, challenging people to be faithful and warning them of the consequences if they're not. And third, it's a letter. It's personal. It was written to address the specific struggles of its first readers, things like persecution, becoming too comfortable, and the temptation to water down their faith to fit in. This is the crucial first step. Revelation wasn't written to us in the 21st century. It was written for us, but it was written to them. By understanding what it meant to them, we can discover what it means for us today. If you try to read Revelation like a chronological timeline, you will get hopelessly lost. A key to understanding this book is in its brilliant literary design. Many scholars point out that the book seems to be structured in repeating cycles, all built around the number 7. There are 7 letters to 7 churches, followed by 7 seals being opened, then 7 trumpets being blown, and finally, 7 bowls of judgment being poured out. But instead of a straight line of ever-worsening disasters, these are more like spiraling cycles. Each cycle of 7 seems to retell the story of the conflict between God and human evil from a different angle, building in intensity each time. The whole book moves in a few major parts. It opens with John's vision of Jesus in chapter 1. Then we get the 7 messages to the churches in chapters 2 and 3, which anchor the whole book in their real-life situations. From there, chapters 4 through 20 unleash the famous symbolic visions, the heavenly throne room, the seals and trumpets, the battle with the dragon and the beasts, and the final judgment. It all leads to the grand finale in chapters 21 and 22, the vision of a new heaven and a new earth. This structure is intentional. It takes the reader on a journey. It starts with their present suffering, pulls back the curtain to show them God's heavenly throne and the victory of Jesus, and then spirals through the story of judgment and redemption until it reaches the ultimate vision of hope. The structure is the message. The book doesn't open with terror, but with a stunning vision of comfort. John sees the risen Jesus, described with symbolic language, hair white as snow, eyes like fire, and a voice like a roaring waterfall. But he isn't distant or scary. He is walking among 7 golden lampstands, which we're told are the 7 churches. The very first image is of Jesus present with his people in their struggles. He then gives a personal message to each of the 7 churches. These aren't generic fortunes, they are specific and targeted. He praises the church in Ephesus for its endurance, but challenges it for losing its first love. He comforts the persecuted church in Smyrna, promising them a crown of life. He confronts the church in Pergamum for compromising with its culture, calling the city a place where Satan has his throne, likely a reference to the city's huge cult of emperor worship. He rebukes the wealthy, complacent church in Laodicea, calling them lukewarm. But to each church, Jesus says, "I know your works." He sees them. This opening shows that Revelation is deeply concerned with the practical, day-to-day challenge of following Jesus. And to every church that overcomes, a promise is given, a promise of restoration and life with God. This opening act sets up the problem. The church is under attack, from outside and from within, and it sets up the solution. Listen to the victorious Jesus who walks among you. Now, John's vision expands from earth to heaven. In chapter 4, he's transported to God's throne room, the control center of the universe. But in chapter 5, a crisis breaks out. God is holding a scroll sealed with 7 seals, which represents his plan for the world, but no one in heaven or on earth is found worthy to open it. John starts to weep. It seems like God's plan is stuck. This is the central dramatic problem of the whole book. But then, an elder tells him, "Do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll." John looks, but he doesn't see a ferocious lion. He sees a lamb, looking as if it had been slain. This is the most important plot twist in Revelation. The hero of the story, the one with the power to finally enact God's plan, isn't a symbol of brute force, but of sacrificial love. Jesus conquers not by killing, but by being killed. His death and resurrection are what make him worthy. The moment he takes the scroll, heaven erupts in a new song, praising the Lamb for ransoming people from every nation on earth. This scene completely redefines power. True power in God's kingdom doesn't look like the power of an empire. It looks like a slain lamb. This is the lens for the rest of the book. The judgments that follow aren't random fits of rage. They are the process of the slain lamb unwinding the consequences of a world that has rejected its loving creator. As the lamb opens the 7 seals, the judgments begin. The first 4 seals release the famous 4 horsemen. These aren't literal figures to watch for in the future. They are symbols of the tragic things that have always plagued humanity when it chooses evil: conquest, war, famine, and death. After the seals come the 7 trumpets, and after that, the 7 bowls of wrath. As we saw, many see these not as one long chronological timeline, but as 3 parallel cycles that tell the same story with growing intensity. The imagery often echoes the plagues God sent on Egypt in the book of Exodus. Just as Pharaoh hardened his heart and brought destruction on his own kingdom, Revelation shows how rebellious human systems sow the seeds of their own ruin. But it's not all doom and gloom. Woven between these cycles of judgment are beautiful interludes of hope. We see a vision of a massive, multi-ethnic crowd of people from every nation, saved and protected by God. We see a vision of God's people being sealed and protected from judgment. These breaks in the action constantly remind the reader that God's ultimate goal isn't destruction, but redemption. Right in the middle of the book, we meet the most famous and frightening symbols. These chapters are an unveiling of the real spiritual enemies behind the persecution of the early church. First, there's a great red dragon, identified in the book as that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan. He's the source of all rebellion. The dragon then empowers 2 beasts. The first is a monster from the sea, which represents violent, arrogant human empires that demand total worship. For John's first readers, this was an unmistakable symbol of the Roman Empire, which demanded its emperors be worshipped as gods. This sea beast is helped by a second beast from the earth. This one represents the propaganda machine that props up the empire, the combination of false religion and economic pressure that seduces people into going along with the system. This is the beast that enforces the infamous mark the number 666. While this has fueled endless speculation, A leading theory among scholars points to a form of Hebrew numerology where letters correspond to numbers. The name and title Nero Caesar, the first emperor to brutally persecute Christians, adds up to 666, making him a perfect symbol for all evil rulers to come. The mark, then, is a symbolic pledge of allegiance to the beast's kingdom, the opposite of allegiance to God. Finally, these powers are all wrapped up in a city, a prostitute named Babylon the Great. Just as ancient Babylon destroyed Jerusalem, in John's day, Babylon was a clear code word for Rome, the corrupt, idolatrous empire that was squeezing the 7 churches. The message was clear: do not be seduced by Babylon. Resist, even if it costs you your life, because Babylon will not last. After exposing the spiritual rot of rebellious human kingdoms, the book moves to its climax. A heavenly chorus announces the fall of Babylon. Then heaven opens, and Jesus appears. This time, he's not a slain lamb, but a victorious warrior on a white horse called Faithful and True. He comes to bring final justice. The beast and the false prophet are thrown into the lake of fire, a symbol of irreversible defeat. This leads to the famous 1,000-year reign, or the millennium. It's one of the most debated parts of the book, but in the story's flow, its purpose is to show a vision of Christ's total victory and reign with his faithful followers, who were martyred by the beast. After a final failed rebellion from the dragon, he too is defeated for good. This is followed by a scene of final judgment. But the last enemy to be dealt with is death itself. John sees death in Hades thrown into the lake of fire. The old, broken order of creation, with all its evil and injustice, is finally over. This is what the entire book has been building toward. Judging evil isn't the end of the story. It just clears the way for the real ending. John sees a new heaven and a new earth. This isn't about escaping earth to go to a cloudy heaven. This is about heaven and earth being renewed and joined together. And then comes the most beautiful vision of all, the holy city, the New Jerusalem. Coming down out of heaven from God, like a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. This is God's promise fulfilled. God's own presence will now dwell with his people forever. A voice from the throne declares, he will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. Everything that was broken is finally made new. This new creation is a perfect reversal of the Garden of Eden story. In Genesis, humanity was kicked out of God's presence. Here, God comes to live with humanity. In Genesis, a curse entered the world. In the New Jerusalem, there will be no more curse. A river of life flows from God's throne, and the tree of life is now available for the healing of the nations. This is the ultimate hope, not an escape from the world, but the complete renewal of it. So, is the book of Revelation a terrifying roadmap to the end of the world? No, it's something far more powerful. It's a letter of deep hope written to people who were suffering. It's an unveiling of the truth that even when the world seems chaotic and corrupt empires seem to be in control, Jesus, the slain and risen Lamb, is the true King. Its message to those 7 churches in the first century is the same message to us today. In a world that often looks and feels like Babylon, we are called not to be afraid, but to be faithful. We are called to conquer not with violence, but through endurance and sacrificial love, trusting that King Jesus has already won the most important victory. The book of Revelation isn't a book of fear to make us tremble. It's a book of hope to make us brave. We've really only scratched the surface of what's in this deep and complex book. If this video gave you a new perspective or a little more hope in your understanding of Revelation, please give it a like and subscribe for more. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's one thing from this video that surprised you or changed the way you think about the book of Revelation?